Hi, Joe. Lovely to be with you today. Joe, you're a head teacher of a secondary school in Lincolnshire. And out of some previous conversations we had, one of the things I really wanted to talk to you a bit more about in your role as a school leader, head teacher, was how you manage some of the uncontrollable factors in school life, whether that's things like, you know, pay rises coming in from the department, Ofsted visits. Some of those things are things that are harder to manage. And I wondered, is that something you feel in your role? There are the things that you control and the things that you have less control over.
Yeah, hi Liz. Lovely to be with you this morning and to have a chance to talk about navigating the tricky waters of school leadership. The the fact that I've been a head teacher for 11 years now means that I feel placed to talk to you about those things. Every year we're faced with the uncontrollables, the curveballs, the things that we don't expect. And I think probably the arrogance of head teachers often makes us think that we can control everything. Even my own teenage children tell me in certain terms, Mum, you can't control everything. And they're certainly right about that. We try really hard and we try really hard to plan, but you're so right. There are so many things in day to day work that are things that you think you can prepare for, but ultimately can't. You've given some really good examples as well of what those things might be. And a lot of them do come from the Department for Education. Some of them are societal. Some of them are, I suppose, the pandemic was the ultimate uncontrollable for us. But whether they're small or big things, it's undoubtedly true that a kind of a flexible, responsive school leader is going to stay so much saner in the role and be able to exist in the role for longer as soon as they accept that not everything can you plan for. Yeah, you're going to have to be accountable for things, but not everything can you anticipate. I suppose,
Let's start with that. Yes. Could you give us an example or two of something, that's happened in your headship in the last few years where yes, it has been that, oh, curveball coming in and then how you've managed it.
yeah, absolutely. I think what was something that might resonate on a fairly kind of frequent and current level with most head teachers or school leaders or aspirant school leaders that are listening to this is that what you do as a head teacher when you suddenly have a series of, or maybe a particularly important role where you get an unexpected resignation from staff. And I think that's something that a lot of school leaders will identify with. Currently, we're 2 weeks into this academic year, and I've had two resignations from staff already. One of those expected, although that member of staff has taken a long time to find a role in a place they wanted, and I'd almost given up thinking that they were going to move on. And another totally unexpected through a change in that person's personal circumstances. Any education that's listening will know that kind of recruitment and retention is one of the biggest challenges of leadership. And there are lots of things that you can do medium and long term to try and make sure that you're succession planning well in school, or that you are being as creative as you can be or as forward thinking as you can be about that succession planning. So here at the school, we work with several skip providers, and we hope through that we have a pipeline of really good, effective teachers. I could appoint as many PE teachers, maybe history teachers as I wanted, and we have regular skits students with us, but we're all clamoring for the maths and the physics teachers, for example. Yeah, James, what do you do when somebody resigns potentially at short notice? Both of those staff actually were support staff rather than teaching staff on this occasion, and therefore they only have to give a month's notice. A month to advertise, shortlist, interview, and then conduct the safer recruitment checks that are needed. That's a tight turnaround in a month. It's about recognizing that you can't always control those things. Although I suppose drawing on the element of your educational leadership strand, which is about being creative. Yeah, there are the things that you've planned, your succession planning, your pipeline. You can have job descriptions and school details ready to go at the start of the year in anticipation of somebody, a role needing to be advertised. But in reality, for a short time, you might need to be creative. And I think that one of the traits or the areas of the job that I actually enjoy most as a school leader is that kind of creativity and uncontrollable. It's tricky. It's difficult. There's going to be a gap in provision, probably in my school in those two roles. But the creativity that's needed to, I suppose, work around that problem is something that if you're a school leader, you can embrace and you can enjoy and you can thrive on. And your mindset can tell you that's actually an interesting challenge rather than a problem. Then I suppose that's a good way to go. So
Yeah.
creativity, and I've given the example of kind of staff resignations, I would say is a massively underplayed, under recognized skill, if you like, in educational leadership. And where in all of the training are we trained to be creative? Certainly in the NPQ programs that a lot of staff do, I see a recognition that you might need to think or change, plan for change. But that idea of being creative is something that I think would be in this podcast my first go-to and my first recommendation. Don't
Mm,
be afraid. Embrace the creativity needed to problem solve.
yeah. And I wonder if maybe you're a head teacher, but you feel, oh, that's not my strength. I guess also that's something, isn't it? You can draw on people around you, or it's just about being open minded, isn't it? Open minded to suggestions or saying to other people, any thoughts? Because I imagine what you might be thinking about is, yeah, is there someone in currently in this role who for a while could do this instead?
Absolutely. And I think you probably that's a really neat segue to like almost my kind of second top tip or suggestion really about strong leadership. There's so much talked about, written about call it what you want, knowing where to go for support or networking or building a group of supportive professionals around you that you can go to when you need to pick up the phone and go, oh, I've got this problem. They might just listen. They might have some practical solutions for you, but building your network is probably one of the first things that I would recommend to any good new educational leader who's new in role. I've recognized that those networks flux and shift and change over time, and that you might start with one and think that's going to be the answer to your prayers, but actually it might in a certain area. For example, I work in a school where we have a really informal arrangement, not even anything such as a memorandum of understanding, but we're six heads who try and meet termly while we come from similar school types. We're in a similar geographical area. And we use our informal catch ups to build a fairly informal agenda each time we meet so that there's purpose to our discussions. But we do sit and we're prepared to swap information, support, signpost to each other, and out of those Toby meetings has come an instinct to just take to email. Really interested to know what percentage of your students are sent and how that differs from 4 years ago. I'm seeing a massive increase in my school. Are you? And you'll get the kind of 5 replies. And so an instant kind of local supportive information kind of sharing system. Well, that's very different, but not any better or worse than actually the supportive network, for example, of working in a trust. And I know that the idea of kind of trust working for some who are in very small trusts or not in a trust yet, there can be a perception of as many threats as supports. But certainly I would not have got through the pandemic or some of my tricky staffing issues, or sometimes just the day to day sharing and swapping of information. Think if I hadn't been in a trust. Being a head teacher can be a lonely job, and being part of a trust or part of a network of something very informal or something very formal is a protection against that loneliness. So I absolutely agree with you. There's yes, networking or trust working or finding your supportive network of colleagues, whether that's through a national organisation or local one, informal or formal, would be, I suppose, one of the most crucial understandings that any new subject, any new educational leader could have.